You've come to fight as 3 men. And 3 men you are. What will you do without freedom?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Godly Potential YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how you are being manipulated, potentially. Okay? Now, when I say you are being manipulated, I do not mean you are being manipulated by a person, but rather a place. What do I mean by this? When I say you're being manipulated, I'm speaking from the point of view of you are being energetically manipulated. Hear me out, okay? Now, before I even dive into that, let me first lay the foundation, okay? Whenever a certain activity is done in a location repetitively, that location begins to take on the frequency of that activity. Okay, you can have some grounds that's just regular grounds, right? It has its own regular natural frequency, probably the frequency of the planet, right? Like 432 megahertz or some shit. I don't know. Okay, but it has its own unique frequency, right? But let's say a civilization moves nearby and they begin to worship on those grounds, right? They begin to pray to their gods and deities on those grounds, right? They begin to make sacrifices to their gods, right? They begin to deem that ground sacred. Over the years, over the months, over the days of them doing this on these grounds, those grounds then become sacred. Those grounds then begin to contain that frequency or hold that frequency. Okay? That is what makes those grounds sacred, because they deemed it so and because they practice sacred things, practices on those grounds. Okay? Let's say you have a church that's just built. Before there was any prayer or worship going on in the church, it has its regular, normal frequency, right? It's not until they begin to have service, they begin to worship their divine figures on those premises, that begins to hold that frequency, right? And so when someone walks into that church, they experience that frequency, right? Especially if there's like a bunch of paintings and stuff like that. They begin to hold that frequency, and that frequency will begin to affect them in that manner, depending on what the frequency is set to. Okay. Now that we got that established, what I mean when I say you are being energetically manipulated is, if you are trying to grow and improve yourself, but you're still hanging out in the same environments, the same locations, the same household you grew up in, you're being hindered. Because the frequency is set to the activity that you did the most in the past in that location. Okay? I'll give you an example. Back in my parents' old household, when I grew up there, I lived there for at least 10 years, 10 plus years, right? At the table, before we ate dinner, I would have to say my grace. Now, after I joined the military, I left, moved out, moved in different places. I didn't say grace, right? I just didn't bless my food. I may send Reiki energy to it, but that's about it. But I didn't say grace. However, one day or 1 week, I flew back home on vacation, and I sat down at the kitchen table in that dining room, and without even thinking, automatically, my body or the energy in the room, pretty much, it was remembrance, and I automatically said my grace, and I caught it, and I was like, whoa, that's interesting. It's like not only is it a subconscious action, like I do without thinking, but it's also the frequency in that area, in that space. So, how are you being manipulated energetically? If you are attempting to grow and evolve and expand, but you're hanging, or you're pretty much in the same household you grew up in, and it was filled with negativity, you're being hindered because the frequency is set at so low frequency, it's hard for you to pretty much change the frequency in that room because it's been programmed for years and years and years, however long you've been in that location. Okay? It was so much easier for me to begin to evolve once I moved out of that house, right? Not only because I stayed in there for 10 plus years and I had siblings as well as parents in there, and they all had their own frequency, so it was just mixed frequency in there, right? When I moved out and got my own place, I set the frequency to what I wanted to resonate at, and it was so much easier for me to stay at that frequency because I was the only one in there. The space was cleared, and it was an apartment, so there wasn't tenants living in there for like years and years. If anything, it's a year or two, right? So if you're trying to grow and evolve and expand, I would advise you, or I would suggest that you consider changing, what's the word I want to use? Changing locations, right? Consider moving. You don't got to move to a different state, a different city. You can simply move. If you live in a certain neighborhood, you can move to a different neighborhood. You can move down the street, right? That's just my recommendation. Because think about it like this. Or another example, I should say, rather. If you watch TV in the bed, in your room, when it's time for you to go to sleep, it may be difficult for you to fall asleep because your body is going to think that, well, when we're in the bed, we watch TV. So it's not time to go to sleep. It's actually time to watch TV. So it's not only energetic manipulation, it's also subconscious actions from years or months of programming, right? It's like muscle memory, you can say. So they also say too, if you want to sleep better, don't have a TV inside your bedroom. Use that just strictly for sleeping. So for me, if I even look at my bed, my body automatically begins to get on that frequency like, well, it's time to go to sleep. Even if I could have just rolled out of bed, right? So be advised that certain rooms, certain locations are affecting you on an energetic level because of the frequency of that room. So if you want to evolve, you want to grow, you want to expand, consider changing locations. It will be beneficial. Like for me, over here where I make my videos at, right? I'm also in a room, but I have it blocked off so I can't see anything else. So when I step over here in this space, my body automatically, as well as the frequency over here, could you see, but being on the video, I sage, I cleanse the air. So over here, this frequency is different than the frequency just a few feet over, as well as my body. The subconscious programming kicks in, was like, well, it's time to make videos. Because before I stepped over here, I was actually tired. I had an idea in my mind of this video. However, before I stepped over here, I didn't have the energy to do it. But as soon as I stepped over here and sat down, I was like, okay, it's go time. So the energy in the places you frequent may be manipulating you energetically. So instead of trying to change the energy of a room or a place, that's been programmed for years potentially, I'd suggest moving from that location to a new location. It's the same goes as well with negative habits, right? Now this may be subconscious, but I feel like it's also the energy, right? If you would typically smoke a cigarette in a certain place, let's say in your car, right? You get in the car and you automatically smoke a cigarette. Now, it is my belief that it's also a subconscious thing that you automatically do without even thinking. You spark a cigarette up. But I also believe that in that car, it's that frequency, it's that what's the word? That promotes that behavior. Okay? So, like I said, in that instance, in the car, I would suggest cleansing the car, right? But it's going to be difficult to fight against that, especially if it's subconscious too. You got to go in the subconscious to rewires and things with that. But that is how you are potentially being energetically manipulated. If you enjoyed this video, if it was helpful, be sure to give a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe. If you like this video can help others, be sure to share it. If you got any suggestions of any future videos, be sure to leave in the comments. And also, tell me what you think about this concept. You think it's interesting? You think it could potentially benefit you by changing up the locale that you frequent? Or do you think it's just, I don't know, just BS? I would like to hear. But that's all. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.
You've come to fight as 3 men. And 3 men you are. What will you do without freedom?